Salufalava, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susana Suisuiki. Coming up.
First of all, go back to see what is the role, fundamental role of media. What are we there for? Why do we do what we do?
Tongan veteran journalist voted in as the new head of PINA. Also,
some of the difficult experiences people have might be seen as a spiritual disturbance.
How Pasifika communities are overcoming shame when it comes to mental health. And later on, a Ni-Vanuatu woman has her sight restored after 4 years. The new head of the Pacific Islands News Association, or PINA, is concerned at international funding bodies encroaching on the region's journalists. After decades of involvement in the media in the Pacific, Kalafi Moala was last week voted in as the new president of the body. He says the PINA meeting in Niue was startling for the number of funding bodies promoting their services to Pacific journalists. Don Wiseman asked Mr. Moala, who's also our Tongan correspondent, what his new job entails.
I think, Don, the best thing of putting it, I'm yet to find out, because I have come in to a situation where the previous president and also the board, they've been in there for 3 terms. So you're looking at 6 years, which is a long time. So there were certain people in Niue, the Pinnacle, that felt that they needed a change. I come in there, I'm really an outsider. I've never been on the board of PINA, never really involved in any of the administrative things. So I don't know what they do. And they elected me, I didn't expect it. Out of the blue. And so I'm in there. Well, the way to put it, they wanted, I guess, somebody from Polynesia to come in, and they elected the vice president as somebody from Micronesia, which is a lady from Palau.
PINA does what? What would you like to do with this role?
I believe we need to, first of all, go back to see what is the role, fundamental role of media. What are we there for? Why do we do what we do? And it has been traditionally, PINA's role is to try to pull together the media in the region and to emphasize what our objectives are, what our role is, and how can we stand together as media organizations, particularly when there are issues that are coming up, whether it's media freedom issues, whether it's the way they treat the journalists and media workers, issues that are now very prominent, like climate change, women issues. How do we, as media in the region, respond or relate to that?
PINA has, over the years, it's organised training courses and things like that. Would you imagine doing a whole lot more of that sort of thing?
I think we need to do that, to continue to do that, but we need to get back into fundamentals. Because what I see that is lacking in many of the media operations is really getting into the fundamentals, how to gather information, how to investigate, how to actually communicate the stories in the best way possible. The kind of training program that we're running now, or at least have been running in Niue, and even just recently, have been, for example, emphasis on the technical things. For example, there were 2 or 3 sessions in Niue on AI and the role of AI and technology issues. The other issues, I think, Don, that's a big concern to me is the area of funding. We had 5 funding agencies in Niue. I have never been in a PINA conference where there were that many funding agencies and their representatives. And there were sessions of the training basically on how to bring in this funding agency. The way I put it is basically how to fill in forms for funding. The reason why I'm most concerned for that is that you end up with a media in the Pacific that's controlled by funding. And much of the funding agencies are really pinned under political things, like PACMED. That's a major funding agency for PINA for years, but it's now under the direct control of the Department of Foreign Affairs of Australia with ABC. And so that's a concern for me. Are we now going to do the priorities and what's important to those funding agencies, or are we going to do what is fundamental and what the region media needs?
Name some of the other ones that concern you.
Well, you have new ones that are coming from outside. It's called Internews. That's the first time they have participated, a big one. There's one that's international, based out of London. It's called the International Funding. They're very prominent and seems good. They're out there doing interviews, availing themselves for interviews. And then, of course, you've got TechMatch, which is a major one. There was another one, and I can't recall the name now. If there's something prominent in Niue, it was a funding agency. And I've never seen that in PINA in years before. The focus has been on training. The focus is trying to work together to address regional issues concerning media. Now we are moving into a situation where I feel media, I'm alarmed with it, may be controlled by outside forces using money and funding to be their way to control regional media. And this is happening, of course, during a time where geopolitical tug of war and so on between China and the West is going on in our region.
Mental health in Pasifika communities is an urgent but often stigmatized topic, clouded by feelings of taboo, shame and confusion. In New Zealand, many Pacific peoples find themselves disconnected from mainstream mental health services, which often overlook the importance of cultural context. To better understand this issue, Coco Lance spoke with senior lecturers and students at the University of Auckland.
Cook Islander Dr. Samuel Manuela is a senior psychology lecturer specialising in Pacific psychology. He says cultural beliefs significantly shape how mental health is understood and addressed in Pasifika communities.
Culture can kind of nuance and kind of shape the way in which we experience and understand aspects of our mental health. And so, for instance, some people might see things as in a more spiritual dimension. So kind of understanding some of the difficult experiences people have might be seen as a spiritual disturbance. And understanding those experiences then give you better insights on how you can support someone.
His colleague, fellow psychology lecturer Dr. Sarah Capelli, says there is a great diversity in Pacific experiences with mental health.
Like not just between age, but sometimes based on like where we're born, like you've mentioned. Our Pasifika who might have been born in the Pacific, our experiences can be very different to what some of our young people who are largely being born more in Aotearoa, how we experience mental health as well, or how we engage with mental health and have those talanoa.
She stressed the need for inclusive talks, talanoa, to address these differences. Dr. Manuela says that many Pasifika clinical psychologists and students are adopting innovative practices by integrating cultural values into their work.
If we have a deeper understanding of your own cultural perspectives and how that shapes mental health beliefs, and how that shapes your ideas around what mental health support looks like, then we can have a better understanding of what that looks like when people are experiencing really difficult experiences and situations.
Talisa Gansetu, a Pacific Honours student, says bridging the gap between clinical support and cultural understanding will pave the way forward in how Pasifika mental health is dealt with.
I talk a lot about how our Pasifika are going to be our future policymakers, and it's good to know for now and in future how mental health manifests, I guess, and how it interacts with each family dynamic, each relationship.
The three are committed to kicking the doors wide open as they research Pacific mental wellness. They say, as mental health discussions evolve, fostering understanding and providing accessible support is crucial.
A woman from Tanna Island in Vanuatu who wasn't able to see for 4 years has regained her sight last month after a visit by the Villa Central Hospital ophthalmology team. One of the surgeons working under the Fred Hollows Foundation, Andrew Lee, told Don Wiseman about the miraculous results on their outreach trip to Tanna.
So there's a lot of cases like that, not only in Tanna, in Vanuatu, but when we did the surgical outreach in Tanna, there's a few of them came like that. And then first time I saw her, she came with relatives. I think it was with the husband, and the husband was walking in front and then she was at the back. So she's like hardly see anything. So she just totally like blind. When she walk in, she only can see the light perception. So what we mean light perception is when you shine the light and then she can pick up the light. But otherwise, she hardly see anything. Yeah, so that's the first impressions that I saw her.
How old was she and how long had she had this issue?
I think she said around 4 years. The blind is like, with the cataract, is like gradually decreased. So by the time she come and saw me, it's already like just light perception. I think initially just blurry and then slowly, gradually just blind, yeah.
So restoring her sight's relatively straightforward for you?
Yes, but the one that I found a bit tricky with surgery back in Tana is most of the cataract there, we call it hypermature. So when we see like a white cataract like that, then usually a lot of things can just go wrong on that side, especially when we start opening the capsule. So anything can happen. Yeah, thankfully, when we start, it's quite smooth surgery, but I was praying hard for that one. So I think I did one eye and then my other colleagues did the other eye. Because we couldn't do both eyes at the same day, so we do one eye and then the next one is the other eye.
And it was the same issue in both eyes?
Yes, so both eyes, most of the cataract down in Tana is hypermature, so both of them hypermature, yeah, same issue.
So how common is it down there then?
I'm not sure about how common it is, but we pretty much seen a lot of hypermature cases in Tana. In Villa, you probably less type of death cases. You will see few, like the one that I'm going to do now, a young guy also with the hypermature. So I think the populations in Vanuatu, you will see quite numbers of hypermature cataract.
And that's because they've been let go too long?
Yes, one other thing. But I think the type of the cataract that they have is different. Like the hypermature, usually the cataract is starting from the side, whereas the other one, they're starting from the middle, the nuclear one. But this is from the side. That's making it white like a milky color. So that's a bit difficult one if you want to start with.
Come back to this woman from Tana.
Yes.
She was delighted, I hear.
Oh, yeah. First day we opened the patch, she was smiling, big smile. That's the best moment when the next day when you remove the patch and then they're just like so happy with that. They're happy, we're happy.
And we know that the Fred Hollows Foundation's working right around the Pacific. Do you think you're starting to get on top of the issues? There had been a lack of eye treatment. So with the work that's been done over the last few years, do you think you're making progress?
Making progress slowly. I cannot say like a big progress. We're doing slowly. Like when I first started last year, we didn't go out to do any outreaches because the central part where the Port Vila is the capital, there hasn't been no ophthalmologist for a few years. I have my colleagues here, but he's up in Santo, so he will come in and out. When I started last year, we had around almost like 400 cases of backlog, and then slowly by the end of the year, we hauled that down, and then we pretty much starting new cases. So last year was quite a lot of work to do, and this year, because done already our backlog, so we started slowly with the new cases again.
That's Pacific Waves for today. For episodes, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple and iHeartRadio. From myself on the RNZ Pacific team, tō whā sui fua.